The SMT method stands for subconscious mindset training. So just to finish up what I was saying before. So as I started getting help with doing this and multiple people and, a lot of years in doing so, all of a sudden I started going from barely getting by to landing $18 million contracts, $22 million contracts. My highest one was $25 million year-over-year contract.
Welcome to the King Dems Podcast, where growth mindset meets leadership and business insights. Get insights from top entrepreneurs, professionals, and thought leaders. Visit kingdomspodcast.com. Fuel your mind. Your next breakthrough starts here. Looking for expert legal support you can trust? At Grayfield Solicitors, we simplify complex legal issues for both businesses and private clients across Essex and beyond. From pensions and insolvency law to construction, conveyancing, and commercial litigation, our experienced team is here to help. With clear, practical advice and a commitment to results, we put your peace of mind first, every step of the way. We're proud sponsors of the King Dems Podcast, championing voices that enlighten the world on growth mindset, leadership, and business insights for entrepreneurs. Visit grayfieldsolicitors.com today to book your free consultation.
We are live, ladies and gentlemen. You once again welcome to the King Dems Podcast. And today, I've got with me, fighting out of South Carolina, United States of America. Make welcome, Dr. Joey, the rapid growth specialist, Drolshagen. How are you?
It's great to be here
Dr.
with you.
Joey? Whoa, you're a fighter now, Dr. Joey.
Yeah, I have been. As needed.
Always was, always will be, shortly before I hit the record button, I said one thing that, fighters and entrepreneurs have in common is the fighting spirit, the fighting spirit. And I did confess to you that I was going to reschedule this, episode, this session. But when I saw the profile, I was like, okay, no, this is what the King Dems Podcast is about, right? Growth mindset, leadership, business insight. And this man ticks all of the boxes, right? This man ticks all of the boxes. There is no rescheduling this one. And guess what? We are going to publish this right immediately after we're done recording, because you are an epitome, you are a paradigm of what this podcast represents. By the way, this podcast is an education podcast, and Apple Podcasts categorizes it under self-improvement. And if there is anybody who is self-improvement in person, in human form, I think that has to be done. And from me to you, it is love and respect to you. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. I always say this: gratitude is good attitude. And when a person shares their time with you, they share their life with you, because the SI unit for measuring life is time. So it's time to unlock the rapid growth, subconscious mindset mastery, and the scaling strategy with Dr. Joey Drolshagen. So we'll kick off with your professional journey, SMT method, and the mission behind helping businesses and business owners scale with alignment and purpose. So how do you come about the SMT method?
It was, man, it came about because I thought I was broken, really. I grew up in a very low income, blue collar family, one of 5 children in a very struggling family. I mean, struggling where people would have to bring groceries. My dad worked his tail off to, he operated heavy equipment. He worked as many hours as he could, and he ended up with knee surgeries, hip surgeries, multiple back surgeries. And he would just keep going and working as many hours as he could to make ends meet. And that was what was modeled for me. And when I was 22 years old, I had an opportunity to take over a construction company, an existing multimillion-dollar construction company. I didn't have to even go get a loan. We were going to cover it over a 5 or 7 year revenue share to do it. And that went from the most exciting day of my life up to 22 years old to 3 days later, me telling him I can't do this. And the reason I couldn't do it is because I felt so much guilt inside of myself that I didn't work hard enough to deserve that opportunity. And that's, I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was broken within me. And from there, I became a student of the works I do today. I have a 28-year career in corporate America, ground floor in sales, driving for, years and years and years and not really getting any mark to it, to as I understood it, continuously looking at, continuously working on myself and trying to understand this and what it was, and doing coach program after coaching program after coaching program. And I learned a lot, but it never changed my results, to understanding. And it wasn't guided by me. It just happened. It unfolded, starting to understand the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is responsible for 85% of the results we experience. Not good or bad, just the results, whatever they are. If there's struggle, 85% of that's coming from the subconscious mind. The other is like half chance or things like that. If it's good things and growth and things like that, it's coming from that programming. So for me, it was that programming causing my limitation. There was never anything wrong with me, the God's child here. It was that when that programming in my subconscious, and that there's a motherboard in our subconscious that hosts all of our programming, everything that we have been told, everything that we've experienced, everything, even experiences we don't have, but somebody tells us about, becomes embedded in that subconscious. The importance of the subconscious towards our results is the subconscious is responsible for triggering brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So if, for me, with that construction company, lack was one of my things. The other is deserving. And so I couldn't get past that programming that I didn't deserve that because I didn't work hard enough for it to accept that. And that would have changed the trajectory of my entire life in doing that. And so since that didn't happen, I went through years. I've been the guinea pig of this whole SMT method and change. And so the whole thing happened. And then as it started happening, I went from barely getting by and afraid of losing my jobs to traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles a week, trying to develop territories and not really making any mark at all, to within a year and a half of understanding the subconscious and then getting help from multiple sources and understanding how I can adjust that programming. And I didn't even know if it was possible. I just believed the mustard seed we talked about earlier. I just believed
the mustard seed.
somehow it would.
Like I'm just so happy you're a man that is loaded with a lot of value, and nothing excites me as in this life more than talking with people that are people of value. I'm not trying to blow your trumpet, and of course, I'm not a hype man. I'm a person who appreciates people. I give people the flowers. I won't wait until you're dead. But we're signing the condolence register or giving tributes. I love people getting their tributes when they are alive, right?
I agree.
And from me to you, it's so much appreciation. I don't think words are enough to express how much I appreciate you as a person, because for me, everything I have done in my life is actually towards achieving what you stand for, right? And of course, my body of work actually speaks to that effect.
Yeah.
The King Dems Podcast is growth mindsets, business insights, and leadership. And that is what you represent. And of course, that's why I'm speaking with you today. You talked about the subconscious mind, and it's really, really, driving my curiosity. Subconscious mind. I'm a man of faith. You're a man of faith. The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his mind, so is he, right? And you talk about not deserving, what was handed over to you. And of course, in my mind, I was thinking, is that a function of what's it called again? Imposter syndrome? Would you say that was imposter syndrome at the time? And of course, I'm very, very curious about the SMT. What does SMT even stand for? And what was that aha moment, right, for you in your personal transformation? Because at some point things changed for you, right?
So the
When
SMT, well,
you discovered it.
that's what I was explaining. The SMT method stands for subconscious mindset training. So just to finish up what I was saying before. So as I started getting help with doing this and multiple people and, a lot of years in doing so, all of a sudden I started going from barely getting by to landing $18 million contracts, $22 million contracts. My highest
Change.
one was $25 million year over year contract. And so I started doing that. So then as I started going up into leadership positions, I started taking, again, this SMT method wasn't even a thought or nothing for me, is I just started using some of those tools of what I had learned over that 2.5 decades and started applying it to my team. And I ended up in multiple corporations with the highest percentage of top producers on sales teams that the companies had ever experienced. And so as I started doing that, and then later on, I got into helping organizations in bankruptcy to get back to profitability. And at one point, my dad passed away of cancer. And a year later, my mom passed
God
away.
rest his soul.
Thank you. She just didn't want to be alive without him. And I found
God
myself
rest
in
his soul as
corporate
well.
now, and I'm still in corporate. And now I have started getting certifications and things like that. And it's like, man, so once we found new owners for the last company, I resigned and I moved down here to South Carolina up in the mountains. And I started out handing out 5 business cards a day because I didn't know anybody down here, and started building from there with that hope, that mustard seed still. And it's just continued to grow and impact. And it's just, and the SMT method isn't something I sat down with a pen and paper and wrote out. It came through me. It was God's work for me for this
Inspiration
method.
of the Holy Spirit.
It was. Yeah. Yeah. And so now I get to spend my days helping people have like literally breakthroughs, going from $300,000 a year revenue to $3 million. And as rewarding as that is, the real gift in it is seeing that person transform into the person being at that $3 million. And I get to see that over and over and over again. And it just
$3 million. The number three
fulfilling.
means a lot to me right now because this podcast was recently certified global top 3%, right? And of course, the goal is to hit global top 1% before the end of this year, 2025. And of course, I think I'm speaking with the right person. I hope I have you on recording now. Are you committing to collaborate with us to achieve that transformation into becoming a global top 1% podcaster? Are you committing to that?
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
And you know how you talked about that with the scripture, as a man thinketh,
Mhm,
so he be. Think about
mhm,
that now. Think about somebody
mhm,
who's going around with limiting thoughts, with low self-esteem, with
mhm,
worth issues, with things like that. That's the
mhm,
kind of things they're thinking. That's the life they end up living. So what the
mhm,
SMT method does better than anything else I've ever come across, and there's reasons I say that,
mhm.
is it helps identify, to bring awareness to those limitations, and then holds the tools to very quickly shift those, which then changes our perception, which then changes the results that we experience. So anybody who wants to change their results, they have to change their perceptions. The only way to do that on a permanent basis and quickly is shifting that programming at the subconscious level.
I tell people something that the brain is like a computer, right? And it's like a software. And I feel like the subconscious mind is the OS, the operating system, right? That the
It is.
brain works with. So I think some people think that the mind is here, but guys, the mind is here because the brain is, what controls the mind. And you say 85% of the results we achieve in life, right, or the outcomes we have are a function of the subconscious mind. So, how about the conscious mind, right? What role does it play?
So the conscious mind we have control over. The conscious mind is the words we use, the thoughts that we entertain, the people we hang
Uh,
out with. All of that's in the conscious mind, but also in the conscious mind is our knowing of what we want.
uh,
And then the subconscious mind, all it does is absorbs. It doesn't determine right from wrong, want from not want, whatever it is. It just absorbs. And then that's what feeds into that motherboard of that programming. And that's the voice we hear in our head. It's the thoughts that come up that go, who do you think you are? Or, man, this is going to be a huge struggle to do this, but I'm willing to take it
uh,
on, and things like all of that stuff is coming from that subconscious. And what we do is we live so much of our life unconsciously. We're not
uh,
even aware. It's just that program playing over and over and over and over again. So It's playing and causing limitation. And so what we do, we're programmed again to work harder, to put in more effort, more hours, things like that. And so we try harder and harder and harder to do it. And that's where you get the mentality like back in the day when it was like, if you want something, you got to put massive actions, exhaustive efforts, and you got to be willing to trade off your life in order to get it. But that was never true back then. We just didn't know any different. Today we do. It doesn't have to go like that. I help my clients. I help the client go from
Work smart, don't work hard.
I help the client go from $7.5 million in a 13-year high to topple over $22 million in 12 months. And that in the year that growth happened was the only year of her adult life that she took 5 weeks of vacation during that year.
Whoa.
And the other thing that
now you're making me jealous. I love vacation.
Well, the other thing that happens is it's specific to entrepreneurs here, right? If you look at the definition of an entrepreneur, they get into like a flow, right? And that flow is they continue to, move as they're going through it. They continue to adjust as they're going. That's entrepreneurship. But so many people who claim to be entrepreneurs are trying to find the ABC model that equals D and follow that and call themselves an entrepreneur. But that's not even what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is where we fully live alive and awake and conscious of what's happening. And we're shifting that path as we're going. What works today may not work tomorrow. AI,
Absolutely.
It could be, it's one thing today.
I am AI.
Yeah, I know. Within 18 months, AI is going to be doing so much more. So if you're not, as an entrepreneur, if you're not looking at those things now, you're going to get behind on it. So, and I'm just using that as an example. There's many other things, but entrepreneurship is really, one of the things I did in COVID is I took up hang gliding. So I jump off of 2,000-foot mountaintops with me and a glider, and in doing that, there's fear. Yeah. But entrepreneurship there's going to be fear
facing your fears.
We can't do the same thing expecting the same results over and over and over again. We have to adjust, and we have to, and it really is like taking a kayak down a river. We have to go with the flow of it. As soon as we start paddling upstream, we've stepped back into the unconscious living of massive actions, exhaustive efforts.
Listen to you speak. It makes me happy, why growth mindset is the key theme of this podcast. People ask me, how come you're talking about mindset and you're talking about business insights on the same podcast? I'm like, excuse me? Do you know what drives business success? It's basically your mindset, and let's try to link it, directly to business success here, right? What is it that most people get wrong about business growth and business success?
So one of the things is, I used to hear sayings all the time. If you want something, find someone who has what you want and do what they did. Right? So we have a lot of coaching platforms. We have a lot of teaching. We have books, all kinds of stuff built around that philosophy, but it doesn't work because what we don't understand is that person who put that model together that became hugely successful, they found their pathway. And so when we follow a coaching program that's going to help us to grow and stuff, it's a locked model. You do A, B, and C, and you get to D. And so we come in on it with fury and excitement and all this stuff. And then we find as we go through it, without even realizing it sometimes, you have to contort the individual away from who they authentically are in order to fit that model. That's why with the SMT method, there's a model, but the model fluctuates to the individual. So it's based on their unique desires of what they want to achieve, their unique programming, all of their unique gifts and skills and talents that were placed within them when they were brought to, when they were born. All of that. So it works off of that. So it's in alignment with them. And I'll give you a quick example. One of the
different strokes are different folks.
One of the things we do in the SMT method is we develop systems of accelerating habits that are unique to that individual. So I have over 700 clients I've worked with over the past 12 years. Not one of them has the same systems of habits as somebody else does. They're unique to that individual.
We all have different handprints.
We do. We all have different desires. We all have different financial goals. We all have different family goals. We all have different programming within that subconscious. Now, I was talking earlier about the conscious and subconscious. So what happens is we know what we want in our conscious mind, but we have this programming in our subconscious that's the doing part of what we want. And so it doesn't trigger the brain waves to take the actions that will lead to that. So there's a gap between the two. The way we close the gap, the only way in 40 years of studies and everything else, and my doctorate degree being in philosophy, everything else is the only way to close that gap is you have to go in there and reprogram that subconscious motherboard. In doing so, we start immediately opening up the door for not only greater results, but achieving that with less effort going into it.
Speaking of results, right? The most important result to business owners is profitability, right? But as a fractional CFO that I am, and of course, I'm a finance professional by training, chartered accountant, economist, master's in business administration, global big four, consultant. And I tell my clients something that people often get things wrong when it comes to business. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality, right? When a business has consistent positive net cash flows, especially net operating cash flows, you are able to operate as a going concern. And being a going concern is being able to operate for the foreseeable future without any, form of hindrances, right? But when it comes to business owners, I think they tend to focus on the wrong metrics. And I'm sure you've seen this a lot in the course of your coaching career. A lot of people focus a lot on revenue, right? And some people focus a lot on expansion, expanding revenue, expanding the operations, and they they run into issues, right? So you are a rapid growth specialist, and with rapid growth comes, you know, challenges, and growth, if not done the right way, will lead to crashing. And I'm sure you've actually seen these things. So I just want you to talk about the
Yeah,
transformations
yeah.
you've seen in
Thank you.
business and how you
So,
turn around bankrupt
yeah.
entities
Yeah.
into profitable ones. Yeah.
Here's how I do that is you can't look at one or the other. You can't look at profitability alone. You can't look at
Uh-huh.
revenue alone. You
Uh-huh.
could be doing 70% profits, but if your revenues are only $1,000 a month, you're not really bringing it in like you want to, right? So you have to look at your revenues, but you have to make sure that they are profitable. So when I say about the rapid growth specialist, it's all about profitable revenue growth. So now when you put those, you got to look at, I've never worked with somebody and not have looked at both of those things.
Uh-huh.
You don't want, you could sell $1 million and if your revenue and if your margins are negative, you have nothing.
And that is why you are the rapid growth specialist for a reason. There's a reason why you
Well,
have specialist to your title.
Well, so if you think about it, in every organization, every business owner I work with, we start out with where's your margin level at right now, and why is that? And we start looking at that and what the possibilities are coming up and things like that. But then we start looking at once we get a margin in place that works, then we start ramping up the revenue because now you've got your margin. Now, as you're adding revenue, you're increasing more dollars for that organization. And then we come up with the prudent reserves. We come up with things like that. The companies that the companies that I have helped get out of bankruptcy, at one time they had like $80 million in cash and they just blew it. They did all kinds of stuff with it and blew it thinking the times are always going to be great. And then when the times went down for the foundry industry, they had nothing to back them up anymore because they blew through it. So that's an
I like
important
what you
thing.
said.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I love what you said. Nothing to back them up. It speaks to something that I always say, that profit says you're winning in business, but cash determines how long you can stay in the game.
And even business owners who I help, like they're fresh starting out and things like that, and they go, "Oh, I'll pay myself down the line and things like that." I go, "No, no, no, you'll never be successful there because you're going to run into things. You're stepping out into entrepreneurship. You're going to run into things. So you have to build a prudent, you have to pay yourself. You have to build a personal prudent reserve that you can fall back on in case there are times when you can't or things like that when we start hiring staff or whatever it is. But you have to have that because without that, your business is gone very quickly.
Absolutely.
If you don't have the money to feed yourself, you can't run a business. It just doesn't work. Unless you go into deeper depth with, lines of credit. And I hear that a lot with entrepreneurs and those are great if used properly. So yeah, that whole side of things, it's the mix of it all. It's not, you can't say this is, Christian, this is Satan. It has to be profitable margins that set on your products and then scaling that revenue. That's really, both of those are in combination with each other.
I love what you say in terms of achieving that balance, but what I say, the ex-auditor in me is curious about, okay, how do you achieve that equilibrium? When we look at what do you guys call it in America, the income statements? We call it the statement of, income statements, basically you guys, that's what you call it. And of course, for the balance sheet, right, we call it the statement of financial position. So the nomenclature is, a bit slightly off in the US and in the international financial
Same
reporting.
thing, it's just said a different way.
Yes. So some people focus on assets, right? Some people leverage. That is, the equity is probably less than the liabilities, right? They bring in a lot of external capital, like you talked about. But when you come to the income statement, revenue, top line, but in the process of scaling, you discover that your operating expenses tend to rise up very, very fast, and sometimes it erodes the bottom line, right? But someone like you are a specialist. You know how to peg certain things and ensure that certain operating expenses are kept under check in order to scale effectively and efficiently, right? So
Absolutely.
I'd like for you to touch on that, because a
So
large
one of the
population of
things,
our listeners are entrepreneurs,
yeah,
finance people.
at some point, every client I work with, they have to start building a team, right? You build up the revenue until it's too much. And I'm not an advocate and let's hire the team and then go out and get the revenue. Again, entrepreneurship's about that flow. So as things are growing, at some point before it gets to be like overwhelming, is we start bringing people in and things like that. When we do that, we got to go back to the margins and look, because they impact margin. And so we got to look at what that margin is. Now, sometimes starting out hiring a couple people, we may be able to weigh out that margin with the revenue gain and things, especially if they're hiring salespeople and things like that, because they're bringing it in. So they're still bringing more dollars in with it. But at some point, we got to start adjusting that margin. Each time we got to adjust the margin to see what that impact is going to be on growth. And then we make adjustments in that. Sometimes it's going through and figuring out where we can save costs, what we can cut out in doing that and stuff to keep that margin. Ideally, I would love to see every one of my clients at 100% margin.
Depending on the industry, though.
Well, it's not possible. I haven't found an industry yet where that's possible to do. But what I'm saying by that, though, is we want to constantly monitor and we want to shift that upwardly. And at the same time, simultaneously grow those revenues. And then the margin continues to go. Now, I have companies who they have scaled from a couple $1,000s a month when I met him a couple years ago, who is currently doing right around $55,000 a week in revenue. So now he's got his team in place. We've gone through the margins. We've gone through all that stuff. Now what he's doing is he's looking at acquiring companies. So now that we've built up the prudent reserve, he has money to rely on with it. He has, things like that set up. Now he's got lines of credit, things like that and stuff that he has available to him. Now he can go out and buy a company and double his size, triple his size with purchasing one company. Now when we bring that in and we start going through the same thing, what are their margins based on their revenues, and where do we adjust that? Where do we, how do we tweak that to get that as high as we can? But then now between both companies, continue increasing that revenue.
I have a serious issue with, business combinations. A lot of times people just look at the numbers, but they don't look at what I say, qualitative factors like the cultural clash, right? The integration of the people, because the people make the company, right? But I'd like for you to speak on efficiencies that are achieved by way of AI, because for my own company, for example, we leverage a lot on AI tools. But the truth is, these AI tools are also not free. So sometimes you need to weigh that balance between, would I say, getting certain activities or certain tasks done by a human, or, by way of getting that efficiency through tools. So, in your experience, how have companies been able to leverage on AI to, would I say, achieve efficiency and, of course, scale faster?
Well, as far as AI, I mean, there's so many uses for it and things like that and stuff. As far as even marketing, it can help with marketing plans. It can help with your pitches that you give as far as sales pitches and things like that. It can help with presence out, like all of that stuff. It can help across the board. It can help even help with motivating, the individuals within the organization and things like that. But one thing to kind of back up a little bit, when you talked about that with like what I call acquiring companies and stuff like that, I'm not an advocate when I'm working with a CEO or a board or a president, somebody who owns their own business. I am not an advocate of you buy this company and you let them continue to operate the way they have been. I am an advocate for you go in there and you set the structure that's working for you in this company in
Mm,
that facility. And then eventually you find somebody that manages that could be from your own organization. So it's not, you miss a lot of that struggle that comes up when it's like two different organizations, two completely different
mhm,
philosophies and
mhm.
all that stuff, is you're bringing that under your umbrella of what worked for you to build what you have here.
Because the cultural clashes a lot of times tend to lead to inefficiencies and a lot of friction, and it's not what you want as an entrepreneur, you know. But as far as AI goes, right, AI is really changing the landscape of business, right? I look at
It's
my
changing the landscape of life, really.
it's changing the landscape, absolutely, because I think about it. People ask me, how were you able to achieve global top 3% in less than 2 years? A very, very big shout out to AI. And of course, I am AI myself, like it's crazy how a lot of the people I used to look up to in the world of podcasting, I look at them, I look at my show, and we have similar following, similar streams and download numbers. This is what AI can do. And of course, big shout out to Gamma app. They are our affiliate partners. Gamma actually helps you to create fantastic presentations, fantastic images, fantastic websites, pitches like you talked about, the great and done with Gamma. So guys, check out our Gamma affiliate link, and of course, go sign up, and of course, promote the show, support us. We make something, we make a sweet commission from the Gamma app signups. So we have just 9 minutes left because Dr. Joey is a very, very busy man. But of course, I'll try to milk what we can actually get out of the last, nine, now it's 8 minutes, right? On the podcast. So a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with the knowing doing gap, and how can they overcome it?
The surest way I've found to do that, and this is what a lot of people do, is you lower your expectations of what you want, that without knowing it, match the programming. That's one way of doing it. And a lot of people do that. Whenever I hear people talk about plan A and plan B, we have a plan A. This is what we want right here. This is what we want. But I'd be willing to settle for this. Whenever that happens, we arrive somewhere around this. So we settle for scraps of what's really possible.
Uh,
And so with the SMT method and the dynamic visioning, we set up that A plan, and that's what we go for. And that's all that there is possible is that A plan. So we shift everything to fit into that. And the other way I know to do it is shift your perceptions, which means you have to go back in, identify, and shift that programming to match what it is you truly want. Those are the only two ways it can happen. You either settle for less than, or you do the work of programming. And because here's one of the things with all this stuff is You cannot go out and get to your vision. You can't go anywhere and get to your vision. You can't go to church, can't hang out with the right people. You can't, none of that. You have to come from that within you. And if we have the desire, that means the way is already planted in us. We just don't see it. So in becoming of that person, in shifting, identifying and shifting that programming is how we get to becoming of that person living that life. And for the guy that was the $3 million with the wholesale company from 300,000 in a year, to 3 million, and now we're going to 5 million. He brought me down up to Ohio last week to celebrate because he was planning on doubling his warehouse facility next year. Instead, January, things just came together. He ended up quadrupling his warehouse, and he was doing the open house on it last week. And so I got to go up there and be a part of that and stuff and meet his family. And just like, it's just so amazing seeing the impact this has and getting to be a part of it in people's lives.
Dr. Joey,
Anything we want is available to us. If we can think
absolutely.
it, we can
The
achieve
power
it.
of the mind.
But we got to do something about the programming in order for that to happen.
I love that. And of course, you'd notice that I've been smiling, right? You mentioned something about entrepreneurs settling for scrap. But when people ask me about what's the plan, I hope you have a plan B. I hope you have a plan C, right? I'll ask you a quick question. How many alphabets does the English language have?
26.
26, right? And guess what, Dr. Joey? I have a plan A, but I have plan B, C, D, E, F, G, H, up to plan X, Y, Z, right? And
I
guess
don't
what?
know.
Guess what? Plan B to plan C is actually to make plan A work.
Yeah.
So I guess
So if that's the case, then you're really,
our listeners should learn that, never
if that's the
settle for
case,
less.
if that's the
Never settle
case,
for less.
you actually have a plan A is what you have.
Uh-huh.
Because if
Yeah.
plan B and C are to meet plan A, then you have
Yeah,
a plan A.
absolutely.
The other thing, the last thing I want to add in here is so many entrepreneurs have an idea and they'll sit down and they'll get a pad of paper and they'll get a pen and they'll spend hours and hours and hours writing out a strategy for how they're going to get there and everything they're going to do and the exhaustive to-do list and all of that stuff, and they write it down. How many things have you ever achieved that went exactly as your plan was?
Nothing.
We waste so many hours doing that. So with my clients, when I get to throttle back a little bit, and we develop that vision, what happens when we're going 150 miles an hour is there's opportunities, insights, directions, whatever it is, just flying by us and we're not even noticing. The only way we notice them is we have to start backing up a little bit, going slower, throttling down, and be more conscious of how we're living. Get out of that unconscious living. And as we do, all of a sudden something comes out of the blue and we overhear something, or we put on the radio and we're hearing somebody talk, or a podcast, and we're hearing it speak exactly into what we're trying to figure out. And that can happen so often. People call that a coincidence. To me, I believe that, I know that that's God working in my life, but people will call it a coincidence. But there's a design that you can live by those things continually flowing and happening, but you can't do that and be chucking along at 150 miles an hour at the same time.
Absolutely not. So we've got 4 minutes left on the clock, and of course they say it takes 4 minutes to save a life. So let's save lives with a quick fire round. I just ask you a quick question, and of course you give me rapid answers, being the rapid growth specialist that you are.
Let's go.
Let us go. Let's go. So number one, what's one or two accelerator habits you think every entrepreneur should have to improve their leadership?
You know what? Find things that you enjoy doing. That would be the one. I don't know. I can't tell you this exact habit because I don't know every individual, and that's why it's unique. So find things that you enjoy doing towards your business and do that more often.
I love that. So what's one belief about success you had to unlearn yourself?
That I wasn't worthy.
Okay, what's the most impactful book you've ever read?
I think it would be the God, there's so many of them. Joseph Murphy, The Subconscious Mind.
Oh, why is Joey inclined towards Joseph? Is it a Joey party?
It opened up a gateway in my life when I started understanding the subconscious mind and how powerful it is in our result.
Okay, I think that'll be a
There's so
recommended
many other
read.
ones.
I hope the book is on Amazon. I'll try to add that to the links in the description. What?
One of the ones you're going to be able to add to, well, no, because I have a book coming out August 4th, and it's reprogramming your subconscious mind, the SMT method for rapid growth, and that'll
Uh,
be coming out. So, but it's not yet.
do you
So,
have the pre-order link? Let's add that to the
no, that's
description.
what I'm waiting to put together right now. So within the
Okay.
next 48 hours, I'll have it, but I don't have it tonight.
Oh, fantastic. Definitely, we are always in communication, so we can always have that and add that to the description. Okay,
Perfect.
so what is a 15-minute ritual that shifts your energy? What's like a practice or ritual, something you do every day that shifts your energy? That is like an energy
Yeah, the
booster
one
for
thing I
you.
would say to people is start being more conscious. Start paying attention to the words you're using, the thoughts you're entertaining, what you watch on television, things like that. Start being aware of that, because whatever those things are is what you're feeding into the subconscious, and that's what you're going to experience tomorrow.
What you say. What's the best investment you've ever made? That wasn't money.
I would say my time in this 40 years of
I love that. The
not only
best
does it
investment
impact
is
my
the
life, it
investment in
impacts
yourself.
many other people. Absolutely. Yeah.
hmm And of course, what is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Trust, have faith.
Trust the process. Whoa, have faith. And of course, I have faith that this episode would actually impact the lives of millions of people across the world. And from me to you, it's an attitude of gratitude. I'm so grateful to have you on the platform today. It's love and, of course, respect to you, Dr. Joy. And to our audience, please help me tell them to do the right thing. Like, share, drop your comments, help this platform, to shoot for the stars, because we are on a journey to global top 1% in 2025. Thank you very much for the support. So for global top 3% is by no means, a little feat. And of course, we are going higher. And of course, we've got Dr. Joey in our corner as well. Do you want to leave a shout out to
Absolutely.
anyone? And of course, do you want to leave any final thoughts before we call it a session?
I do. I feel the exact same way about this conversation, man. This is such a delight to get to have this and the depth that we got to go and stuff. And
Whoa,
anybody can get
part two, please
what?
go,
Okay.
book part two, sir.
Anybody can get a hold of me and schedule a 15-minute call. I have a link set up to my personal calendar at coachwithjoey.com. One word, coachwithjoey.com. And
We'll
we'll
have
set up
that
a
in the
15-minute.
description.
Okay, we'll set up a conversation. But
Mhm.
a special thing for your guests, for your audience tonight, is anybody who schedules that call while we're on there, I will gift you a copy of the book.
Fantastic. Fantastic, guys. As teaching time saves nine. Wow. So thank you very much once again. And of course, guys, till I come your way again, stay out of trouble, keep believing in yourselves, and always, always go for something. Always try to achieve something very, very important. Go for something in your life. And of course, be curious, be hungry, learn, you know, conceive, believe, strive to thrive, and of course, achieve. So God bless you guys. For me, it's goodbye.